Good morning. The bear says hello, and give it just a second for some people to maybe see we're up here and going, and we'll be on our way. I am responding today to one of the questions that if you remember, I don't know, probably close to a month ago, I reached out to you guys and you sent me some wonderful topic ideas and questions and things like that, things that you wanted covered in if you were going to talk to a dad-like person, um, then what would you want that person to talk to you about? So I'm going to give you my perspective today on how to choose a spouse. Now, two things you need to know about me are I grew up like on musicals. My family is like the hopeless romantic. I had a friend in college that said, Nathaniel, um, what if life actually was like a musical and people would just randomly break out into song and dance? And I actually, at least at the time, thought, hey, that would be pretty amazing. Like, if the world were a little bit more like a musical in that kind of way, um, you know. So I grew up with the hopeless romantic thing, and totally like that was it for me. I wanted that story and all of that, and then in a very small nutshell, when I was in college, I was in a prayer meeting, and long story short, felt like the Lord told me to pray every day to not leave Him alone about this until He gave me what I was asking for. And what He was telling me to not leave Him alone about was that I would pray every day that He would give me my wife. And I was pretty faithful to that, praying pretty much every day for the next 2 years that He would give me my wife. Meanwhile, the woman that I was going to marry was traveling the world, going to mission trip after mission trip after mission trip, mostly to Mexico, but also she spent about 6 weeks in India and some time in Tanzania and Costa Rica, and just going all over the world, serving the Lord. And long story short, the Lord brought us together into the same brand new church, and where I was an intern, and we were trying to start a house of prayer. So, whatever, we spent a lot of time praying together in the very early hours of the morning, and that was how we got together. And I had heard through the grapevine that she had said, "I will not date anyone again unless it's my husband." Now, I missed a little bit of a detail. I didn't realize that it was unless God told her he was her husband. So, what I interpreted that to mean was that if I asked her for a date, that was the quickest way to doom that relationship to failure. I thought that I just needed to propose. So, on November 4th, 2006, she came in. We were both in the prayer room together, and I said, "Hey, before you go, I want to talk to you." We went into the back room, and I said, "Hey, would you pray about marriage with me?" All kinds of hemming and hawing, and I'm telling you the very short version of the story. And she said yes. 6 weeks later, we got married. 2 months later, we were pregnant. We had our first child on our 11-month anniversary. 5 years later, we had 5 kids and had moved innumerable times, and we've come to call that Ready, Fire, Aim. So we did not do the hopeless romantic story. I wouldn't trade our story for the world, though. But all of these things combined, I feel like I've got an interesting perspective on how to pick a spouse. So, and what I say might surprise you. So, another sip of coffee, and away we go. All right. So, how to pick a spouse. I will tell you that what I honestly believe is the most important thing is that you choose. And then you take responsibility for that choice and you keep choosing. I remember in college asking that my friends who were getting engaged and things like that, I was like, how do you know when you like when it really is love? How do you know when it really is love? And they always gave me the same answer. You'll know. You just know, Nathaniel. And that fit very well into the whole hopeless romantic paradigm. Um, but I don't think, I mean, like, love very much is ooey gooey. Love very much is an emotional thing. But at the same time, I think the true test of do you love somebody enough to marry them is, are you actually willing to take responsibility for the fact that you chose them and that you only get one choice? You chose them, you keep choosing them, and you, like, for real, keep choosing them. And I get it, like, you need to know I am a pastor. I have counseled people to get divorced because their relationships were abusive. They were not healthy. They were, it seemed to be, I mean, I know God can do all sorts of things, and I'd love, and I celebrate the relationships where an abuser gets healthy, like takes responsibility for their actions and gets healthy, and there can be reconciliation. I love seeing those things when they can happen, but I am not one at all to tell somebody that they need to stay with somebody that's abusing them. Um, and So, I mean, you need to know I will counsel that direction. However, um, I'm not talking about those cases right now. I'm talking about the normal relational ups and downs where somebody isn't at their best 100% of the time, and they aren't always easy to live with, and they do get annoying sometimes, and they aren't perfect, and the things that you love about them, when you are dating them, blind you to the things that will eventually drive you nuts about them. And um, and you don't know what choices they're going to make. Are they going to choose to take responsibility for their imperfections and work on them? Or are they going to just ignore them and pretend like they don't exist? Or are they just going to choose to not think they're as big of a deal as you do? You know, you throw kids into the mix, and kids force a whole other level of unselfishness and unpredictability that you have no way of knowing how somebody's going to respond to it, how you're going to respond to it. Having a kid, actually, I was just reading an article yesterday that both in not just in women but also in men, that having a child actually changes the biology of the brain. And so, literally, the person you marry, that as soon as you have kids, you're married to a different person and you are a different person. So, the whole idea of being able to hopelessly romantically fall in love with somebody, you know, when you're 20 something or whatever, and then that person is the same, like you get married and they're a different person the day after your wedding. And, and, uh, and so what matters is not the ooey gooiness of the love. What matters is not the intensity of the feeling. What matters is the responsibility taken for the fact that you chose that person, and that they take equal responsibility to choose you for the fact that they chose you. Um, Now, I will say, don't be stupid about the choice. Um, get counselors around you who can help maybe point out some blind spots. I don't know how many abusive relationships could be avoided if people followed that consistently, because a lot of times those behavioral traits have warning signs ahead of time. And you know, or you see somebody who's never been able to hold down a job and it's always somebody else's fault, like, oh, danger Will Robinson. Like, this is somebody who looks like they may chronically have issues taking responsibility for things. You don't want to be in a lifelong marriage with that kind of person. um uh I mean, like, so find as best as you can that the best way to prepare for marriage is absolutely embrace personal responsibility. That looks like financial responsibility. That looks like emotional responsibility, and those are two big ones. And then find somebody who is doing the same thing. And I'll add to it spiritual responsibility. That if you are a Christian, don't go looking for a non-Christian. If you are an on-fire Christian and you are really going hard after God, don't marry somebody who's like, meh, I go to church and I'm happy with that. Like those things can be so difficult, especially when you're raising kids together and you're trying to get on the same page value system wise. Like find somebody who is running the same direction you are in life, and don't even worry about it. This is honestly some of the best advice I can give when in choosing a spouse, is find somebody who is running the same direction as life at the same pace you are running. If you are running hard, you better wait till you can find somebody who's running just as hard as you are, or you're risking the bitterness that they made you slow down, and the other person vice versa. But find somebody who is running the same direction you are in life, that they are running just as hard in that direction as you are, and submit this to God, so that someday He goes, did you notice her? Did you notice him? And you go, and then you have some of those conversations together, and ultimately, whatever the dating, courting, whatever, ultimately it still comes down to make a choice, and then recognize it's made, that you keep making that choice every morning, every night, for the rest of your life. And when there's things that come up that threaten that union, you work on them and you fight to stay one. Doesn't work if one person's fixing the other. Doesn't work if it's at unequal levels. Like those are other warning signs that I would caution against. But bottom line, the best way to have an awesome marriage is to take responsibility for the fact you chose that person, and you don't allow room for other thoughts to come in. You keep the thankfulness for them. Anyway, I think this video is probably my longest ever yet. Obviously something I care about a lot, and there's a lot to be said about it. I'd love to hear from you guys, more specific questions. We could get into this. We could go deeper into this, talk about it, and lots of other days. But this would be my heart for you. My heart for you is that you would have an absolutely thriving, successful, over-the-top, passionate, amazing, rock-solid marriage to somebody that you love, that you're head over heels for, that you know loves you back, that you are like faithfully committed to each other. And I want you to know that no matter who you are, no matter what your history is, no matter where you've been, that is possible for you. And so hold out on that, and go for it. And yeah, now let's go after this thing together. Let's go do marriage awesome together. So bless you guys. I believe in you. We got this. The Lord is with us. He'll help us, and we can be a big help to each other. So that's my 2 cents. And we'll sign off for now. Bless you guys. Have an awesome day. Believe in you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.